Now, Ben, I'm going to go to you again here because obviously you're part of a coaching system at the moment. And in the modern game, we talk about NRL clubs having their window, their premiership window. Has the South window just slammed shut?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say it's shut yet. I still think that they can make a few adjustments to their squad. But when you think about if you've still got Damien Cook, if you've got Cam Murray, Kulumatangi, Latrell, Cody, you got all these guys, your window is still open. Yeah, Jack Whiten's coming. Window is still open, but I would say this not open for long. So I definitely think they need to really reset, not only as players, but as staff and get on the same page. Listening to him there's no doubt that there was just way too much noise. Way too much drama, way too much noise at the back end of the year. And as he said, they haven't had that for the last few years. But I think the players got to take a lot of ownership of what's happened, especially the senior players, how their season's gone. I reckon they just need to get together and make sure that some of the things that were talked about this year aren't happening next season. You know, we heard stories of players getting special treatment or some players being allowed to do this or do that. I think sometimes it's important for those guys to get together and maybe, you know, put your hand up and say, look, you know, to be honest, guys, maybe I took the piss a little bit this year and, you know, I didn't go with the team values, and I think it's important to get that sorted if you're going to go on a run towards the finals and do something with this unbelievable squad that you're going to have for the next 2 years. Like, just knuckle down.
Yeah, it's because it's talent.
It's talent,
the talent's there, but it's just, it seems like to me, it's attitude. There's some teams in the competition that just can't win the premiership based on talent alone, and the South Sydney Rabbits aren't one of those teams. They've got the talent there, and they're going to have it again next year. For me, and JD spoke about it then, you know, on the back of adversity, they capitulate all the time, South Sydney. So it's so predictable, and it's really become a little bit of a trademark of their game is when, you know, they're attacking and they're in really good field position and the ball goes on the ground or there's a turnover or whatever, almost every time they give away a penalty on the back of that because they get upset, they get frustrated, you know. It's a mentality thing. It happens all the time. Last night, you know, they're not that connected early on in the contest. There was a lot of ball on the ground, and the way they handle those situations, for me, separates them from the you know, top 3 or 4 sides, and that's where Souths are at the moment. So I think, as Benny said, those little, you know, what do they stand for? What's important? Those little parts of their game at the moment where they're getting really frustrated. Why are they getting frustrated? And if they can sort that out, the answer to your question, Maroon, is they can compete in the competition with the talent that they have.
Yeah, I think they've got a huge off-season of soul-searching. They need to, the senior players in particular, need to sit down and thrash out any differences or issues they've got. But for me, whenever Latrell's there, I think their window's open. I think he's that good a player, he's that big a superstar, that if they get the best out of Latrell, and they didn't really get the best out. We didn't see the best of Latrell, particularly over the latter stage of this season.
Have we ever seen that at South? The best of we have.
Are you suggesting Latrell's never been good at South, Marie?
Oh, I don't think he's been as good at South as he has at Origin level or at the Roosters. No, I absolutely don't, mate.
And he got dumped at Origin level years ago.
Yeah, but
he's had some.
I know he's had some great Origin games.
Times.
He's had some great. I think he was a better player at the Roosters.
I think you're a bit harsh.
Well,
on
maybe
him,
I'm a bit harsh, but it's not a good look when you're a paid member of a club and this bloke, the club's won 4 games since May, and this bloke's up on stage with some country
you
in
another
Western.
Bloke who's just,
yes,
that's
I
ridiculous.
am another one of these blokes. And
that's ridiculous.
You know what? Let me say this too.
Oh,
Rod
please.
Churchill, he's not a paid member of the football club. I don't think he's entitled to say what he wants, but I am a paid member of the football club. And while the club's going so shithouse, it's not a good look for this bloke to be away at Rodeo's. I don't care whose Rodeo it is.
Man,
and I don't care whose concert it is. South's come first, or he can go and play somewhere else.
That's a ridiculous. That whole concert thing.
It's not
no
a
one's
ridiculous.
got a problem though. No one's got a problem with anything when you're backing it up, all right? And at times he has, and at times he's not. You know, and I just think, you know, my message, if I was JD, my message to Latrell would be: you can be the guy that can propel us where we need to go. Like, you can be the guy. If Latrell was to step up and own everything that's gone wrong and take on his part of it, and then really come to an agreement with the players that for the next, you know, year, 2 years, we are going to knuckle down. Nothing comes first more than footy. He can be the real driver, and I've seen it in successful teams where the top guy, if he makes that commitment, then everyone will follow, and I feel like he can have that influence there, and that's what he's there to do, right? He's there to win competitions.
Are we in the? Is rugby league the only business in the world? I am really sad about the back end of the Rabbitoh season. But is it the
Doesn't
only
sound
business
like it.
in the world, Gerds? Can I? When people
Got a
talk about
Roosters t-shirt on.
certain Souths players, Souths players, they say on their day. All right. So I've been working here for 20 years.
No,
What if
South's not the only team that gets said
but
about.
They shouldn't be. They should be more consistent on their day. What if you turned up to Fox League and go, you know what? We only have him here because every third week he really delivers. Why isn't that fair? That's a fair
Is that
analysis.
your opinion?
That is my opinion.
You're throwing Latrell under the bus. I mean,
Mate.
Cody's form over the last 2 months of the season, 1 month of the season, Cody's form tailed off as well. He's a huge player in that footy team. When Cody's playing well, they're a lot better team. Lachlan Ilias' form
I'm
dipped
not
over the latter
seeing-
stage of the year. You can't just pin it on one bloke.
I'm
Maroon.
not pinning it on one
Well, you
bloke.
are.
Well, I'm saying to you that again, this Churchill
Why is he
fella.
the only one you talk about?
He's not the only one I talk
Well, I haven't
about.
heard you
He's
I
the
haven't
one.
heard you had a shot at anyone else.
He's the only one I see with a Country and Western Star. I don't like it, mate. He's having a week off. Why is he having a week off? Who just rings up work? I'm
He didn't
having
have
a
a
week
week
off.
off.
I've never have a
Didn't
week
have
off.
a week off.
Well,
No, they
he
always
was
talk
suspended.
about that he
shouldn't
has
have been
time
away.
off and he goes.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah,
and I'm over it.
I
And
just
I am
don't
a
think-
paid member.
I don't think it's good, Reedy, if one guy's getting time off and other guys aren't, and that can always cause drama. Just my main message to South would be, boys, the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Like, get your shit together, all right? And as Gerd said, there's teams out there that just would die for the talent that you've got. Don't waste it. Come together, sort it out this off season, sort out the coaching staff and the messages you want, and get going forward.
All right. Let's all just take a breath now. Anyway, that's the first time the Rabbitohs have missed the finals in the past 6 seasons. So good luck to the Roosters moving
I think I saw a
forward.
stat, Maroon, that that's the worst capitulation
Yeah.
in the history of the game.
Yeah,
To be
in the
leading the comp
NRL.
after 11 rounds and then miss the finals.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
NRL, in the history
It's
of the
amazing.
NRL. Although the poor old doggies, we have a look at their season. Currently on 20 points, 7 wins. Last year also 7 wins. So haven't really moved forward this year. The doggies, players complaining about long training hours apparently. Players allegedly needing to take mental health leave over training ground punishment for being late to training. Before I go to you boys and get your opinion, let's get some audio here from Reid Marnie, one of the players on the roster at the Doggies.
I think he's a mate before he's a coach, and that's what everyone loves about him. He's easily approachable. His door's always open, and a lot of boys go and talk to him just about life advice, and a lot of, and then footy comes second, really, and that's how he is. But he has standards, and we have standards as a playing group and as a club of where we want to go to. And obviously Cam is stressed out a lot that this is the way we're going, and if you don't really like it, then probably not the place for you. But we know where we're going as a group and as a club, and obviously Cam's the leader of that, and myself, back everything he does and what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, that's one of the big signings. Reid Marnie talking about Coach Cameron Ciraldo. So probably, Reedy, this is one to throw to you first. What do you know of the dramas at the Dogs this week?
Well, I mean, it's been simmering for a while behind the scenes. These reports of players being unhappy, and obviously what's come out this week is that a player at the club about 5 weeks ago, he was about 10 minutes late for training. He trained, and at the end of the training session, as his punishment, he was basically forced to knee wrestle, which, guys get their knees and they wrestle and try and get someone on their back, I believe. Every member of the squad who was fit and healthy at the time. So obviously we're talking in excess of 20, I would imagine, players. He went home that day, finished training for that week, but at the end of the week, he took some mental health leave, and he's still on mental health leave at the moment. I mean, it's a hard one. I've sort of grappled with this because, obviously they're a club that needs an overhaul. They're a club that needs a clean out, and Cameron's trying to do that. He's trying to build some resilience at the club. He's trying to build some sort of intestinal fortitude there, and it's a lot harder than I suspect he or anyone else thought it was. My issue is whether it went too far in this case, and I don't think you get the best out of people by belittling them or embarrassing them. I think that's what's happened here, and so it's a difficult one because they've got to change the culture of that place. It's become infected by a losing mindset, and it's been over a period of time. It's not, a short-term thing. This is over 5-6 years that this has infiltrated the place. And that's what Cameron's been met by. That's what he's been confronted by. And he's trying to change it. He's trying to toughen the place up. And he's basically made a point of saying, if you don't want to come along for the journey, you won't be here any longer. I feel it feels like this kid's become, I wouldn't say a victim of that, but what's happened to him's sort of become sort of collateral damage almost in this overall of this roster in this footy club.
Ben, again, I say it again, you are a current member of a coaching roster. Are these methods of punishment archaic or are they relevant?
Look, first thing I'd say is, at the moment we're hearing a lot of this talk about that we're training too hard or we're training too long in the days. I would be surprised if the days have really changed from earlier on in the year. We didn't hear these things during the season, so I doubt that all of a sudden they're adding on extra hours at the back end of the year. I just think there's a lot of players there that either are on the out or feel like they're not going to get renewed and they're kicking up a stink and, leaking things to the media. And I agree with you, Reedy, that they need to change their culture. So if you don't like it and you don't like the style, then there's other clubs you can go to. There's other clubs you can go play for and other coaches. So if you can't handle it, then get out. Because I've been at a lot of places that really push the limits. And unfortunately, you could get with it or get out. But the second part about the punishment, look, I'm a coach at the moment, and I do those drills all the time. Guys, we call them shark bait. We call them feed them to the lions or whatever you want to call it, where you get a guy in the middle and you make him wrestle one player after another until he's literally so fatigued that he can't lift his arms and he's getting thrown around. But when you do these drills, they're meant to be complemented with encouragement. You want to encourage players because you're essentially breaking them down to then try and build them back up. But if you're using that drill as a punishment and you're using that drill as a bit of humiliation and embarrassment, I think you're missing the point there. And I don't think culturally that would be the right way to go about things. Maybe other coaches have different views. But if a guy's come late and he's maybe even disputing whether he's late or not, and then his punishment is to get thrown around by all the players, you can understand there that he might be left in a very distressed state. And we have a lot of players that are going through a lot of different things, and there might be a really good reason why he's struggling or he was late. But then to throw him to the lions, as I'd say, or shark bait, I don't know if really culturally you would have got a lot out of that. And that's just my opinion on it.
Good.
Yeah, it's kind of really important these days that coaches have a really good understanding of what the individual's life's like away from the game as well. So we don't know sort of what he's walked away from, like what he's walked into that sort of environment. And he probably mightn't have been mentally or physically ready for it on that day. But it's really hard, right? Because for some players, they just brush that off. They just get on and they just get the job done and they move on. That's my punishment. Yeah. And just become part of the group again. But, some players are more sensitive than others. And unfortunately, it seems on this occasion that it's just been the wrong guy, has been identified on the wrong day, and it's sort of turned into something that it probably didn't need to, because we all agree that, the Bulldogs, they need some change. And Cameron Ciraldo knows what success looks like, and a lot of the guys in that organisation don't actually know how hard you need to work to be successful because they've never been part of a successful program. And some guys in there know. The guys that have been, at Penrith and Reid Marnie at Parramatta's had sort of a fair bit of success, know how hard they need to work, to get the rewards. And the rewards are there, but, the NRL's not for everyone. And being at a club like Penrith or like the Melbourne Storm, where they train as hard as they play, it takes a certain type of player and a certain type of character. But every coach is going to model success and the success that they have off the clubs that are winning. And so if everyone's doing that, then all of a sudden all the clubs and especially the coaches that have been in those systems are going to go away from that system and try and implement that somewhere else with maybe players that aren't ready for that. And I think that's the danger. And with Cam Ciraldo, he probably went in there thinking he could implement that over a certain period of time. But because of the results, he feels like he probably needs to accelerate that now because the pressure's coming and there's people falling out the bottom of that. And it's unfortunate, but I think it's in the best interest of the club long term.
I think they're almost two separate issues. The idea that they're training too hard and training too long, and what's happened to this young fella. You know, I think apparently he had some issues going on. The club didn't know about them, so you know, if I'm sure if they'd known he had issues going on or he had some issues in his life, the club, Cameron wouldn't have done that or wouldn't have thrown him to the Lions, as you say, because they would have been more sensitive to what was happening, off the field with him. But they didn't know about that, so that's important to know. Second thing about the training and the long hours, you know, to me that's good. No player has actually come out and said that. That's a lot of rumours, a lot of whispers, and sort of things being said behind the scenes, and no players actually come out and formally said, or we haven't heard from a single player who's come out and formally said they're training too hard, they're going too long. And that on that issue, you know, I think Cameron's going down the right path because you know they as we said, they need what's been happening there hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked for a long time, and it needs to be dramatically overhauled. And you can't just change the roster overnight. You need to. It's impossible in the modern game to sweep everyone out the door and bring in a whole new squad. So they've got to do they've got to make a lot of those changes with the group that's there. But they can move on some blokes who maybe they think are behind this whisper campaign, this rumour mill that just hasn't. It's been constant over the past 2 months.
And I think we talked about systems, right? We talked about the Melbourne Storms, Craig Bellamy and the Storm, they're pretty selective about who they bring into their environment. If someone's a bad egg, there's only one bad egg, and then they can flick them pretty easily. So Serraldo's going through a different scenario at the moment where he's going in and he's probably having to flick 5, 6, 7 bad eggs until he gets his system where it's humming. So he's got the right to do that.
All right, so in closing on this, if you're a Doggies fan, the boys would say change will happen, but it's not going to be overnight. You're still in the middle of a long haul to turn this joint around. So am I saying that right, Reedy?
Yeah. Well, they've got Steve Crichton, Blake Taft coming next year. I think Siwa Takiaho.
Salmon.
For me, they're still at least another 12 months away from being a really competitive side.